What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Kick It AFCON, VOA's Africa Cup of Nations podcast, focus on nothing else but the tournament in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Michael Hove, joined in studio by my wonderful friends, my co-hosts. Some of them are my rivals. We'll unpack that as we go. But once again, I'm your host, Mike Hove. I'm joined in studio by my good old buddy there, Sonny Young, my AFCON champion, Muqbil, Yabarow. I'm joined by Coach Sam Sasu, and of course, the one and only Kahli, Abdu.
Let's get it.
Man, gentlemen, the tournament of dreams and nightmares is slowly wrapping up, but boy has it continued unpacking. We saw the semifinals. What games? We'll start off with Bafana. What a game. Left anybody from Southern Africa heartbroken. Anybody from West Africa is celebrating. The final itself is West Africa United. Yeah. But let's start off with South Africa versus Nigeria. What are your thoughts?
I would just say kudos to Bafana. They played a great game. You know, technically they were superb. You know, they knocked the ball around very comfortably. They were very confident on the ball. And the Super Eagles played a very tactical game at first. Just nullify them, keep them away from our goal area, let them play with the ball as long as they want. And then, you know, South Africa they gassed out eventually because, you know, they were running all throughout the first half. And by the second half, the legs were gone.
Kahli, what about that long ball strategy that you're using? You said it tires them out?
Yeah, I'll let Sam talk a little bit about that.
Coach Sam, talk to us, man. Those through balls, those over the last man.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of look at it, you know, with the formations that they were playing. You had Nigeria playing the 3-4-3. You had South Africa playing, you know, the 5-4-1, which makes it difficult, right? So you have different aspects of the game where, you know, if you're going to have a team that has a tight front block, especially within that 18-yard box, you're going to have to try to break through them by either spreading the defense out wide and then trying to find the through balls with the runs behind. So it was a technique that, you know, they tried to use, but obviously that exposes you out a little bit more because now you're actually running off of empty fumes coming into that next half. So those chances that they actually created, they didn't put those away. And that caught up with them in the second half and, you know, led up to the penalties taking place.
Muqbil, Spider-Man failed his task.
Oh man, I wouldn't say he failed his task, man. He was still brilliant, man. There was a couple opportunities that Nigeria had one-on-one with him, and he really took it away from them. So I still think he did.
Was he 100%?
I think after that one respective one-on-one play, I think he had some shoulder problems, but he seems to me like a person, even in post-game, he doesn't make excuses for himself. He's a true professional. You know, it's easy to say, hey, my shoulder hurt, so give yourself an excuse as to why it didn't work out, but he didn't do that. So I commend him for that. I think, to me, though, South Africa, man, they were playing very fluid. They had ample opportunities, as we've mentioned, but they may have missed out on the biggest chance in the game, I think, with the free kick being blocked and the bounce back, and it kind of was an open goal, and it kind of went over top. So I'm pretty sure Bafana's going to be thinking about that for some time.
Speaking of Batman, I would say, you know,
Spider-Man.
I mean, Spider-Man.
I was about to say Batman is yours, bro. Spider-Man is
Yeah. Speaking of Spider-Man, he, you know, we were told he studies the players, like how they play, but it seems like they studied him as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they all know he dives.
You have to.
So I was saying, you know, you guys were talking about the run-ups. There's a style that Bruno Fernandes uses and Jorginho, where they wait for you to dive, then they go the other way. You see Romero played that same penalty, whereas the others knocking in the middle because he dives, you know, and so it was interesting. It wasn't like he didn't do a great job. It's just the players played excellent PKs. Yeah,
they studied his movements.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
But what about that comeback for Bafana? Osimhen had just, you know, they questioned that VAR move. All of a sudden, Bafana get a PK, and boy, did they bury it. What are your thoughts, Muqbil? They were supposed to be 2-0 up, and somehow it ended up 1-1.
This is another storyline for how amazing this AFCON has been, right? What we're seeing is like the level of excitement that Nigerian fans across the world had, knowing that Osimhen gets that goal and then all of a sudden it's 2-0. We are coasting to the finals. And then to take that feeling away and not only say, hey, it's not a goal. It's not only not a goal, it's a PK on the other side, and it goes in. And now you're a 1-1 draw with a team that has now some amazing momentum going in their direction. It's man, it was tough, but they dug deep, and both sides, kudos to both sides for really playing an amazing match.
Yeah, I think the penalty was called on Yusuf, the Nigerian, and the South Africans were aware of it almost immediately. They started, let's review this VAR, but it was a great game.
That also speaks to how and unpacking how VAR has been used versus how it was used in Qatar. I actually love how it's been used at AFCON. I love how all teams went there with their technical teams. The last time I was talking about Morocco, right? As Morocco played Bafana, you would see the coach run to the sidelines and their little computer there going, nah, this is the play. Nah, this was offside. Like, I love how that has now been incorporated into the game. I think it's made it way better in terms of play. When we're talking about the standards of African football, it changed everything, and this AFCON is a proof of it. So now let's delve into the next game. Ivory Coast, the Elephants, this redemption story seems to continue unpacking itself. They played against the Leopards. Your thoughts? That goal?
Man, I got to tell you, spectacular goal. You asking me if
spectacular goal, spectacular play.
Yeah, I'm number one, very happy for him to have scored that crucial goal to send him into the finals. He deserves it, right? But I think that the kick itself isn't an accident. He intended to do that.
It looked intentional.
Now, the bounce.
That was a whole different
story. That's something you can't control. I kicked it, it bounced, and then I don't think any player would intentionally kick a ball downwards and bounce it, except if you're doing some kind of, I may have seen it done before on the street where you hit it down, but it's...
Coach Sam, how difficult is it to stop one of those shots?
This is prime time AFCON, bro. Are you thinking that in that moment?
I don't think so.
You have to kind of look at it in the moment of Sebastian Haller being there. I can't say it's intentional, but I think it's great technique to actually find the ball where it's coming behind you. You have to time out the contact of the ball meeting your foot, and you have to find the accuracy. So those are two different variables you're dealing with in the moment. Now, to actually have it hit on a bounce, I don't know if that was intentional at the time. But it's still good technique because you're still finding it on target, and it's making it difficult for the keeper to actually dive and make that save.
Muqbil, do you understand why he's on billboards now?
I'm sold, man. I figured it. I knew there was something special about the young man when, with what he does. He's such a big striker too, right? He just requires so much. And I said it even before, even if he's not necessarily all the way healthy, just his size and his stature and knowing what he can do to you scares a lot of teams, and he can really play in that decoy role. I wasn't really expecting him to be, really trying to take some of these opportunities. But to me, I kind of second you guys' thoughts in that, he absolutely meant to strike it. But that strike kind of, to me, that's where I was iffy about whether or not he intended on the bounce. But then when you really, really watch the play back, though, you see that on a regular volley, your foot kind of doesn't go in a downward motion. It would kind of stay parallel. So his foot's follow through made it seem like maybe once he realized he didn't fully connect, he then was just like, let me just bounce it as hard. Maybe there was something on a follow through aspect of it, because otherwise, I don't see why his foot would have went in a downward motion. That's kind of, you know what I'm saying? That's the only thing. So, maybe it wasn't, like you said, initially the intent for it, but once he realized he didn't get that footing on it that he wanted to, maybe it's like, let me just get anything on it. Let me just get anything on it. So, it kind of worked out from that. Bounce was spectacular. Man, goalie didn't really know what hit him, and it was just enough,
under the crossbar.
Spectacular goal, nonetheless.
Man, this AFCON has given us so many gifts, so many beautiful goals, man. This is obviously going to be up there.
I would put it up there,
a couple
in my memory, in the last decade, for sure, I think it's top one. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So now let's head back to, I guess, the games as we now start navigating. Like I said, we're starting to wind down AFCON. Semifinals are over. Quarterfinals are over. We're now looking at the finals and the third place playoff. Bafana take on the Leopards of DRC. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
I think that Bafana really looked great, like I've been saying, against Nigeria, and they showed everybody what they're made of.
We were talking about how that game was more than just a game.
Yeah, it really was. And I could tell that the players put their all into it. And the only worry I have for them is that maybe they've
exhausted
themselves in the semifinal. Whereas DRC, I expected so much from them because they have some ballers, but Ivory Coast were just too powerful for them. And maybe they might be a little fresher than South Africa, but you never know.
Sam?
Yeah, I think with that match coming up, I think South Africa has some type of redemption on their mind, because I think coming out of a match that they just played, especially against a strong Nigeria team, coming into that last match that they're going to have to play, they want to at least leave with something on their shoulders. So I think they have some momentum going into this last match for what's coming for third place.
Mike was telling me that Bafana has older players on its roster,
Right.
so this third place match might be kind of a good send-off for them.
Well, I wouldn't call it a send-off. They still have the World Cup that they can vie for. World Cup qualifications are still going on. I think they can still push to at least at the very least play in one more World Cup.
Okay.
Bafana hasn't played in the World Cup since 2010. So I think for them, this momentum, if they keep carrying it, this will be a beautiful thing. But Muqbil, before we hear your thoughts, let's introduce the head coach for the Super Eagles, Jose Paceso. He speaks more on their victory against Bafana, but he also unpacks his thoughts on the Super Eagles and what they have planned for the Elephants. Let's see what he has to say.
You play against a good team. One team play together long time because they 8 players play in the same team. They show fantastic organization. Was a tough match. You deserve to win, but they deserve also because they create opportunity like us. I think you're trying a good strategy for beat them. Was in penalties. I'd like to finish the game before, even that lance. But okay, it's good. It's a good VAR. It's good because it was penalty against us, but you score. But for us, for our man. Mine is not good because he was winning 2-0 and draw 1-1. I think he deserves, my team deserves, my players deserve, and of course the 250 million Nigerian people deserve also.
I think my team deserves to win. You heard that from the head coach of the Super Eagles, Jose Paceso. I don't agree, but that's a story for another day. But before we come back to the studio and unpack what Coach Paceso had to say, let's also hear from a Bafana player. We have Aubrey Postman Modiba. Let's hear what he had to say about the game that they played.
In the beginning, we didn't care about the names. We didn't care the teams they play for. We could see the fight we put there so that we can win the game, because we also believe that we can win the game irrespective of who's playing and for which team, because we trust ourselves, we believe in ourselves, and that's what this team has. And I'm proud of the guys, the shift they put today, and hopefully we can put the same hunger and attitude going into the next games.
We didn't care the names. Even Batman was not scary, gentlemen. Osimhen was not scary. Muqbil, your thoughts there. You heard Jose Paceso giving his props towards Bafana, saying, you know what, this is showing development, how the 9 players that started in 11 are from the same club, Mamelodi Sundowns. Him giving that props of the beauty of having a team that is local, that plays together. Aubrey saying, yo, we're not scared of the boogeyman. What's your thoughts?
Honestly speaking, exactly what Coach said, I think is a sentiment that we've spoken about in the past. In all sports, right? Irrespective of star talent, to me, the most important thing in sports is chemistry. And when you play together, when you have a team that understands each other, regardless of these other star players not knowing how to play together is very problematic, because you're used to a certain standard, right? If you come in and let's say, for lack of better words, if we look at Batman Osimhen, right? He's now playing with a team. He's not playing with Napoli. He's not playing with the guys that he knows that will get him the ball exactly where he's used to. So it's going to take a lot longer for this crew, this Super Eagles team, to play together. And we've also seen some of the challenges that they had even in the World Cup qualifiers. They have quality players, but they just don't play together enough.
Yes.
Whereas the South African team, the Bafana team, because they're all local, and especially having the 9 of the 11 players play on the exact same team, man, that's everyday training. That's every single day we're working together. We've been playing together for years. So I know. I don't even have to think, man.
Actually, Okocha said that, where he's like, the beauty, this was after they played against Morocco, he said the beauty of the Bafana is you can see he could close his eyes
and he knows where he's
right there. He's right there.
There was no reason for these guys to be as precise as they were. How many times did they get it over the top of that Nigerian line? Find each other every time. So maybe if they were, like we said, a little younger, a little more pace, maybe not exhausted from the game before, because they've now gone 2 games all the way to PKs, right?
Yep.
They've played excellent games. One, they were successful. The other one, not as successful, but still, had a stellar game. And now they go up against this DRC team. I still think with the chip on their back, like you said, to make sure that they let South Africa know, hey, it's not all about rugby. It's not all about cricket.
They're ready.
We got the football talent as well. So.
I mean, they've accomplished their mission, regardless of what it looks like. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of South African pundits, and a lot of them applaud them. They say, you know what, regardless of what happens, they went toe to toe with the Super Eagles, one of the pre-tournament favorites, and they blew their way out. They really played, and whatever happens, I think they're going home as heroes.
Absolutely. I think, to me, to be honest with you, this entire tournament has shown certain teams that have never even qualified for AFCON to come out here and have, good and decent performances. You can build on it, right? Infrastructure is the key. I love the fact that there were certain smaller, quote-unquote smaller teams, like the Cape Verdes, and as far as they went, right? Maybe a little disappointing for them because they came out at the top of their group, maybe expected to go a bit further. Nonetheless, this is amazing. That team was brought together through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the amazing aspect of what social media can do for, teams. And if you just have an idea of what you want your marketing strategy to be, hey, let's get some of these guys over and let's get them to come play for the home country. So kudos to them, man. This AFCON has been terrific.
DRC, your thoughts?
Congo, I think for that match alone, Congo had a very strong outcoming through with Ivory Coast. I just think that they're missing that final finish that they needed, especially when you have a through ball that comes in, you're 1v1 the keeper, and we don't even put it away. That pretty much sealed their match and sealed their fate at that point. Ivory Coast in that game, you had not even just the pride of their country being the host nation, you had the fans being there. And that adds...
The 12th man.
I was just about to say that. They say that in Borussia Dortmund. The Yellow Army, the Yellow Wall is the 12th man. So Ivory Coast had that 12th man on their back, which kind of made the match more special for them at that point. And maybe the pressure got to Congo at some point where they couldn't finish their chances off when they had them.
Kahli, you guys ready to take on the Elephants and their 12th man?
It's going to be a tough game. Tougher than when we met them in
the first time.
It's not going to be the same game. Both teams are exhausted. Getting to the final is tough, but they have that 12th man. I saw something when I was looking at their semifinal game. They were really connected with the crowd. It's like they're playing with the crowd, and
every time they get a play, the ball goes out, the defenders.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So,
I saw Osimhen after one of his goals earlier in the tournament. He ran right up to the Nigerian contingent and was really like spurring them on.
Yeah, I think you're realizing that you need that. That's going to give you that little extra when you're tired, and it'll just motivate you a little bit more to push. So it's going to be a crazy final. I just know that it'll be tough playing Cote d'Ivoire, and especially just the storyline, because they will be thinking about the story, this narrative. We were out, everybody, you know, they dumped us out, said all these things about us, but look at us now. We have no reason not to.
I was actually about
they
to
be
hit
thinking
to
they're
that.
already champions.
I was about to hit to that, Sonny. The storylines, both storylines, really beautiful storylines.
Wonderful storylines.
Nigeria standing tall as a pre-tournament favorite. They seem to have been the only giant that has proved their point.
Yeah.
The host, Ivory Coast, the redemption story, a story of we barely made it out of the groups alive.
They fire their coach
We fire
early
our coach.
on.
We battle all the way to the end. The storyline keeps
Coach Fi,
itself.
I mean, we've got to give him a shout out. He has really instilled, as Sam likes to say, pride for the badge. So I mean, I think the Elephants will definitely be ready come Sunday.
Now, Muqbil, your thoughts on the boogeymans that are playing there, Sebastian Haller and, of course, Victor Osimhen, both of them pivotal players for the countries.
Yeah, man, I think Osimhen's coming back from this abdominal kind of injury.
That was a surprise injury.
I know, but 2 minutes in,
Tummy problem.
He did go down,
he went down, and I'm not going to say some folks were excited. But, but Vic came back, and Sebastian Haller, is just great to see him back. To me, I love a game when you have the full strength of the teams. You don't want that excuse, if we would have had this guy or if we would have had this guy, it would have been a different story. To have two major stars for both teams looking like they're playing in stride and they're picking up momentum, it's excellent, man. Sebastian Haller, scoring that goal for them is giving him that boost that he needs. And Vic has been phenomenal. Whether or not he's come to score or come to disrupt, he's been a problem for everyone. He's caused penalties. He's caused havoc, man.
Against Bafana, he would pull 5 people.
And
Muqbil,
he's deceptively strong.
If
My
Osimhen
God.
is fouled on Sunday, Trostakong is going to take the penalty
Absolutely,
kick again.
absolutely. I think Victor has decided that he doesn't want to make this tournament about himself. And to me, being that big a star, African Player of the Year, hundreds of millions, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got the big profile, all the kids see you with the blonde hair and the look. Like, for you to now say, look, none of that matters, I'm doing this for my country, man, amazing, amazing quality.
I would say 20 years ago when the Super Eagles won in the AFCON in 94, there were young, up-and-coming, talented players that weren't superstars by any stretch. No one knew. When I was a kid, we didn't know that's the player, that's that player. We had Rashidi Yakini as a number 9. You had Amokachi as like a number 8. Okocha, number 10. Kanu. These are really strong players. Together as a team, they were unstoppable. It seems like this is the spirit that Osimhen and the rest are trying to bring
We were
back.
having a conversation, which I want to bring back here, of how do you think Osimhen winning this AFCON cements him in that group, that Okocha, that Nwankwo Kanu group, where he's now among those, I guess, for lack of a better word, greats when we're talking about Nigerian football?
Absolutely. You need to win that to be in the conversation. It's not enough to do it at your club. Amokachi is an Everton legend. But what he did with the Super Eagles, supersedes that.
He's like, the first Nigerian since Kanu to
Yeah,
win
to
the
win the
African Football of the Year.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about moving forward, gentlemen. Of course, AFCON wraps up shortly. We've got the World Cup qualifiers ongoing. What does this mean? What does this tournament mean, A, to the players, and B, to the teams?
I mean, for Nigeria, it could be a real boost for their World Cup qualifying campaign because they've been struggling so far. And so I think this has to help them, their performance in Ivory Coast.
Sam?
Yeah, I think that for the players of this tournament, it showed, once again, we go back to that sense of, I'll use a different word today, that sense of community. The teams that have community built into their squads have been the ones that have been performing consistently well. Those teams that just have individual players that are coming together within the tournament, and you can notice it on the field as they're playing, these are just individuals that are on an 11-man squad. They haven't been performing well. So you have to now use this tournament as, okay, how do we rebuild community within the squad? But then also for our nation, how do we make sure that we have players that are willing to play for the badge? Because you have an Ivorian team and you have a Nigerian team going to the final because they're willing to play for the badge.
Right.
And then we have to see who comes out on top.
A couple of leagues have their seasons open in terms of signings. Do you think we'll see a couple of African faces out there?
There should be, realistically, and that's always a good topic of conversation. I think there should be some signings from AFCON, but there's that stigmatism that some people don't take the AFCON as a serious tournament.
Right.
And that's the stigmatism around
Don't
Europe.
you think the perception changed for this tournament?
Oh, yeah, it has, especially for those players that nobody really paid attention to, that came alive throughout the tournament, that made either the great saves as keepers or made great runs on the pitch. I think that with this tournament alone, especially with the teams that nobody saw as, the Cape Verdes, the Mozambiques, all those squads that came up and have made an impact, now you have certain eyes actually watching, like, okay, we actually can use somebody to fit this narrative how we want to play.
Coach Sam, on that note, what do you think of the chances of Nwabali, the Nigerian keeper, to be signed by a bigger name club?
Let's bring him to United, That'd be great. Let's bring him to United.
Let's make it happen.
Our clubs need him.
Oh, yeah.
He's based in South Africa.
Yeah, he's a fantastic keeper. I think that there should be looks at him coming out to Europe. I think that he can possibly even compete with some of the best keepers that are out there in the world per se, because you have to look at the saves he made and the timing of the saves, because being a keeper, especially in those large tournaments, it's not easy to do what you do. I mean, you look at Emi Martinez for Argentina.
Right.
Yeah.
Major saves. Yeah. That's what cemented his legacy. So why can't we bring him to Europe?
Yeah, man. I like that. Fofana also, I think he plays for Angers right now.
Yeah.
But I think he might get a look at a bigger team, because now I think they're in League Two. They dropped down. So shout out to the keepers, man. They've been stellar.
They have.
I actually did want to segue to the keepers themselves. Like, so if we look at, like, for example, O. Williams, right, the Bafana keeper, he's in his early 30s.
Yep.
I mean, one thing that has been commended for the Bafana team is the fact that they are a local team.
Yeah.
Do you think that any of them would want to break away and move to different clubs?
That's hard, right? Because you've built, once again, community,
right,
with not even just the players in the squad, but the community nation, outside the nation, your country, and once again, it's pride. There's some people that don't want to leave their country to play football. They love playing football for the country at the highest level, because it's for the young man that's selling things in the streets to see them play, for them to actually be in the local markets, and that's something you can't feel past that, because sometimes you have players that will end up leaving for Europe. And they create the name, and then they forget about where they come from.
The connection.
Yeah, there's a loss of connection. So when they do come back home, some people can't relate to them, because now you're living a lifestyle where you're driving
the way you play, the way you live, the way you
all of that. You
and
can't.
Also, a big move can be a bad move for some players, because they just don't acclimate. The culture is too much. The pressure is too much. They miss home. They miss so much. And maybe for Williams, he can find a decent team in Europe, because goalies play into their
up
40s.
until their late 30s, early 40s.
But I know who's going to be calling a lot of these guys. Saudi Pro League.
Yeah,
that's true.
But we don't want to bring that conversation today.
That's a great point.
I don't think they should go. That's just my. I know that's going to be the biggest pull, right?
Yeah.
Because
the money.
It's the money. Yeah.
Right. It's the money, and that's what some people are saying it like that. But you have to also understand this, right? With all that money, where is that going to get you at that point?
Right. So if you go, and this is why a lot of younger players are doing this, right? Initially, the move was like, hey, this is going to be a retirement league. Guys are going there when they're done. No, now younger guys are deciding we're going to go to Saudi, do 2 years there, and we're still going to be able to ball, make some generational wealth, and then go back to Europe.
Yeah.
But here's my question.
Yeah.
Football is football. What makes European football so special that
That's
anybody
that's
else?
exactly what
When I
CR7
watched
keeps pointing out.
the South African Premier League, I'm just like, okay, what's
missing?
Yeah. This isn't less than the Premier League. It's just we have more eyeballs.
We've been
on
told.
the Premier League.
We've been told. That's all it is.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, even if we look at the conversation between Saudi Pro League and MLS, to me, I think Saudi Pro League is light years ahead of MLS.
Yeah,
of
course.
A ton of
Absolutely.
folks won't tell you that, though, right? Because they want to build on the MLS, which I think the MLS can get there, but it's not there right now. So what happens? You got when Messi and Inter Miami went over to Nasser, 6-0.
Crushed.
Both Messi and Ronaldo didn't play.
Cooked.
But But you see what you just said though, right?
Yeah.
You said Messi and Inter Miami.
Right.
There's
but
a
Luis
disconnect.
Suarez was playing and Busquets were playing too.
Gentlemen. So we can do this all the time. We have one more pod to go. Gentlemen, let's wrap this up. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into another episode of Kick It AFCON. Unpacking everything AFCON. Let's meet same time, same place next week. I'm your host, Mike Hove. Peace.